Have you ever felt like something is deeply wrong with the world, but no one around you seems to notice? You wake up, go to work, pay your bills, try to survive. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice keeps whispering, "This isn't freedom. This is a trap." What if I told you that the reality you believe in was never yours to begin with? Because behind the illusion of choice, behind the smiles on screens, and the banks that lend you money they never had, there's a system, a financial conspiracy, engineered not to serve you, but to control you. And here's the truth they'll never admit. You were born into a game, and that game was rigged before you even took your first breath. A handful of people, yes, real people, not myths or shadows, sit at the top of a silent empire. They don't need guns. They don't need votes. They rule through numbers, through symbols, through silence. They use money as a weapon and debt as a leash. And while you fight for every cent, while you dream of someday making it, they press a button and shift billions because they designed the rules. You weren't taught how the system really works. You were programmed to obey it. From the schools that never mentioned how money is created, to the banks that charge interest on something they printed out of nothing, to the news that distracts you with fear, while the real theft happens quietly behind golden doors. This isn't theory. This isn't exaggeration. This is what they've done for decades, and it's working. Ask yourself, why does the middle class work harder than ever, but get poorer? Why do prices rise, but wages don't follow? Why do governments bail out banks with your money, then tell you there's no budget for your future? Because you're not meant to escape. You're meant to consume, to obey, to stay tired, anxious, dependent, and blind. But today, something different is happening. You're not just watching another video. You're about to see what wasn't meant to be seen, because what comes next isn't on TV. It's not in school books, and it's definitely not approved by the ones pulling the strings. This is the kind of truth that burns, the kind that wakes people up, the kind that makes them afraid of what you might do once you understand. So don't look away, don't click out, because once this starts, everything you thought you knew about money, power, and freedom will begin to collapse. And when it does, we'll finally begin to understand why. And when it does, you will realize something even more powerful. You were never alone. If you made it this far, it's because something inside you refuses to stay blind. That voice in your chest that's been screaming for truth. It's been heard. This message found you because you're part of a small group of people that still think, still feel, still see beyond the illusion. And now, I want you to do something. Scroll down to the comments and write just 5 words. I'm awake. Pray for me. This isn't for the algorithm. It's for you. Because once you declare it, everything changes. We read every name. We pray over every soul. This space is not just for watching. It's for protecting, healing, and awakening. You are not a viewer. You are part of something greater. And when thousands of people gather in truth and intention, something shifts in the world. Now, if this video sparked something in you, if your heart is racing and your mind is wide open, click like. It helps this message reach someone who's still asleep. Subscribe, because what we're building here is a digital sanctuary, an army of minds too strong to be programmed. Turn on notifications, not for updates, but for warnings. Because what's coming next will be even harder to ignore. This is not entertainment, this is revelation, and the next piece of truth is already waiting for you. They told you this was life. Wake up, go to school, get good grades, follow orders, get a job, pay your bills, stay quiet, obey the rules. They called it normal, but it was never freedom. You were born into a system that never asked for your permission, only your compliance. And while you thought you were making choices, they were already made for you. Before your first paycheck, before your first thought, before you even knew what freedom was supposed to feel like. Because somewhere behind closed doors, someone wrote your story without you. The moment you stepped into a classroom, the programming began. Not to teach you how the world works, but to condition you to accept a version of it that serves the system. Not you, to sit when told, speak when asked, memorize, repeat, forget. You were never taught how money really works. You were taught how to chase it. You weren't educated, you were shaped. And all along, the elite were watching, feeding a machine that prints money from thin air while convincing you that you are the problem when it runs out. But that's the brilliance of the trap. Make you blame yourself for a system that was designed to keep you small. The rules were never fair, because they were never meant to be. The deeper you look, the darker it gets. Everything you were told to believe, from success to security, was a carefully placed illusion. The career you chose, the loans you signed, the debt you carry, the fear you feel when your bank balance dips. All part of a code you were never supposed to see. A secret code only a few understand. The ones at the top. The ones who move billions without lifting a finger. The ones who play the game while the rest of us live inside it. The rituals they keep. The dark knowledge they share behind gold doors. Not religion, not politics, not morality, just power. Economic power, spiritual control, invisible chains. This is not a theory. This is not a metaphor. This is your life, designed by people you'll never meet, to keep you distracted, in debt, obedient, and most of all, silent. You were never free. You were just convinced you were. And when someone finally shows you the map, you start to see the cracks. You start to feel the weight of every invisible cage. And you start to question, why do billionaires never talk about this? Why do schools never mention how currency is created? Why does the system reward silence and punish awareness? Because if you knew the truth, you might walk away from the game entirely. Now look around. Does it still feel normal? Or have you started to see what they tried so hard to bury? If so, say it out loud in the comments. Say, they control everything. Because once you do, the illusion begins to break. But this is just the beginning. Because the deeper we go, the more disturbing it gets. And what you're about to discover next was never meant to be exposed. You were never lazy. You were never stupid. The problem is, the game was designed for you to lose. Because from the moment you entered the system, you were positioned at the bottom of a pyramid you didn't know existed. Trained to believe that hard work equals success, that struggle is noble, and that one day, if you just followed the rules, you'd finally get your reward. But rewards were never part of the plan. Only compliance, only distraction, only survival. The truth is darker than they want you to believe. Your exhaustion is their profit. Your debt is their control. Your attention is their currency. There is a hidden system that governs everything, but it doesn't speak your language. It doesn't announce itself. It operates in codes, wealth codes, symbols, signals, and silent transactions that move billions while the rest of us beg for cents. And while you were taught to clock in and obey, they were taught how to manipulate markets, hide money in algorithms, and expand empires through silence and secrecy. The harder you work, the richer they become. Because you are not part of the elite's economy, you are the fuel that keeps it running. And this isn't new. For centuries, these unseen architects have orchestrated an economic conspiracy so deeply embedded in daily life, it's indistinguishable from reality. This is not capitalism. This is not freedom. This is a financial trap, disguised as opportunity, sustained by belief, and enforced through spiritual submission. They don't just own the banks. They own time. They own laws. They own perception itself. They understand the power of rituals, not the ones taught in temples or churches, but the rituals of behavior. Wake, work, consume, sleep, repeat. These patterns aren't habits. They are programming. A designed rhythm of control that keeps the masses docile while the billionaire agenda unfolds behind closed doors. Ask yourself this: why is debt the default? Why does poverty grow as productivity increases? Why are entire generations born into systems where the cost of living rises faster than wages? Because scarcity is manufactured, because struggle is engineered, because your suffering is part of the equation. And they, who live above the law, untouched by recession, immune to inflation, thrive on your confusion. Because as long as you keep asking how to win, they never have to explain that the board was never yours to play on. They built a world where truth is buried under data, where wealth is hoarded through loopholes, where spiritual control is disguised as convenience. and compliance is sold as success. But something is shifting. Cracks are forming, voices are rising, and those who once obeyed without question are beginning to see through the curtain. The matrix is fraying, and somewhere deep within, a question begins to surface. What happens when the people finally realize they were never meant to win? That question is where it all begins to unravel. They didn't need chains, they didn't need bars. They just needed time and a little silence. From the moment you opened your eyes to this world, they've been feeding you one script, line by line, day by day, not to teach you how to live, but to train you how to submit. You were never given knowledge. You were handed instruction, the kind that doesn't create thinkers, only obedient, loyal pieces of someone else's game. School didn't teach you how to create wealth. It taught you how to follow orders, to memorize, to repeat, to obey. Sit still, raise your hand, stand in line. Television didn't entertain you. It programmed you. It taught you who the hero was, who to fear, what to buy, how to look, how to think, and when to laugh. The system isn't broken. It's working perfectly because it was never designed to free you. It was engineered to control you from the inside out. They replaced your instincts with algorithms, your dreams with debts, your silence with noise, and then told you that this chaos was your only chance at happiness. You weren't born into freedom. You were indoctrinated into a machine that survives on your unconscious loyalty. This is not freedom. This is invisible control. They used your innocence against you. They masked conditioning as culture. They made financial slavery feel like success. And every step of the way, they rewarded your obedience with the illusion of choice. Go to school, get the degree, get the job, get the house, get the loan, get the pills, get the screen, and don't ask questions. Because if you ever stop and think, if you ever wake up long enough to see the patterns, you might notice something horrifying. Every system around you is designed to keep you asleep, not physically, spiritually, mentally, economically. This is not accidental. It's ritual. A wealth ritual that extracts your energy, your attention, your soul, and feeds it into the hands of the few who operate behind the curtain, the ones who understand the dark knowledge, the ones who whisper ancient codes in quiet rooms, the ones who never appear on your screens, but who decide what those screens show you. You live inside a manipulated system, a script so complex it doesn't need to be enforced by force. It's reinforced by belief. Beliefs they gave you, beliefs you never chose. And while you're fighting yourself, doubting your worth, begging for validation, they are watching, counting, measuring your compliance in data and patterns. The matrix is not made of wires, it's made of thoughts. And every thought they don't want you to have is buried under entertainment, politics, fear, and endless distraction. But now, something is shifting. And once you start asking the forbidden questions, once you begin to feel the weight of the truth, there's no going back. Now ask yourself, if everything you've been taught was a lie, what else have they hidden? This can't stay hidden forever. Fear is the prison, ignorance is the lock, and comfort is the cell lined with velvet cushion. It sounds peaceful, harmless, even safe, but that's the illusion. Because the most dangerous form of control isn't the one that hurts. It's the one that feels like home. The elite understood something centuries ago. Not just how to control resources, laws, or nations, but how to control you. Not through force, through feeling. They studied the human mind like a machine. They dissected emotion, broke it down, rewired it, and learned how to use it. Not to help you, but to hold you in place. Anxiety became an asset. Pain became a product. Your suffering became a sustainable fuel source. While you panic about the future, they build it. While you doubt your worth, they invest in your silence. While you scroll to numb the ache, they sell you empty comfort packaged as happiness. This is not chaos. It's architecture, a hidden system built not on freedom, but on emotional dependency. A system where your fears are forecasted like weather patterns and monetized with clinical precision. You were trained to feel powerless, not by accident, by design. They don't just sell products, they sell permission to rest, to feel, to escape. And every time you reach for what they offer, you reinforce their power and diminish your own. This isn't capitalism. This is a spiritual control mechanism, one that whispers you into compliance, one emotion at a time. They don't need weapons, they use stories. They don't need prisons, they build lifestyles. They don't need leaders. They manufacture influencers who normalize distraction, worship wealth, and silence truth. And while your eyes are fixed on devices, the real rituals happen behind closed doors, where wealth codes are spoken in silence and decisions are made in symbols. You don't see them. You're not meant to. But they're there, the unseen power behind the curtain. This is the billionaire agenda. Control not what you do, but what you feel, because emotions dictate actions, and predictable actions keep the machine alive. You feel stuck, but you were placed there. Your anxiety isn't random. It's the product of years of input, images, rhythms, and reinforcement, a carefully constructed emotional maze built by those who learned how to turn internal pain into external profit. And they've done it so well, you don't even realize you're still asking their permission to be free. But now the cracks are showing. The matrix isn't as seamless as it once appeared. Some are starting to ask the forbidden questions. What if your sadness was designed? What if your fear was useful to someone else? And what happens when enough people stop feeling what they were taught to feel and start seeing what they were never supposed to see? That shift, that spark, is exactly what they fear most. And it's already begun. You've seen what wasn't meant to be seen. You've heard what was never supposed to be said. And now, here you are, sitting in the silence between what you used to believe and what you can never unsee again. There's no comfort here, no turning back. Because once the illusion cracks, reality doesn't look the same. The colors change, the sounds distort, the world feels off, and that's because it is. This was never just a game of money or politics. It was about ownership, of minds, of time, of emotion. And now that you've seen how deep this system runs, how invisible control was always the true currency, you face the question they fear most. What will you do with the truth? Because knowing is no longer enough. You are no longer innocent. You've crossed a line that most never reach. And the elite, they count on that. They rely on your silence after the shock. They rely on the numbness that follows revelation. Because if truth doesn't lead to action, it becomes just another part of the cage. The manipulated system was always meant to make you doubt yourself, to confuse you just enough that you don't trust your instincts, to keep you asking questions in the dark instead of demanding answers in the light. They designed it that way. They built it to feel overwhelming because confusion leads to compliance, and compliance is the most profitable form of slavery ever invented. They created a matrix of distraction, not to hide the truth, but to make sure you never look for it, to keep you chasing the next hit of dopamine, the next false goal, the next artificial crisis, while they operate in total silence above it all. This is spiritual warfare wearing a suit and tie. It's the wealth code encrypted in everyday life. It's a billionaire agenda, and your suffering is written in its budget. And now that you've seen the blueprint, the next step is yours. Most people won't take it. They'll go back to the comfort cell. They'll convince themselves this was just entertainment. They'll scroll to forget. But you, if you've made it this far, you're not most people, because something in you has already shifted. Something is awake. And now that it is, you'll never feel normal in a world built on lies. And that's exactly what they fear. Not rebellion, not protest, awareness. Because when awareness spreads, control weakens. And when enough people see the invisible chains, the system starts to break. But it only starts. The real war happens in the shadows, through influence, through emotional control, through pain. And that's what comes next. In the next video, you'll uncover the psychological strategies used to keep you in place, how your suffering is systematically engineered, then turned into a product, how trauma is used as a funnel, how pain is monetized, repackaged, and sold back to you as medicine, ideology, and identity. This next chapter is not easy to watch. But if you've come this far, it means you're ready, because now you know, and knowing demands a decision. Will you go back to sleep? Will you pretend this was just another video? Or will you step deeper into what they never wanted you to understand? Because once you realize that every emotion has been weaponized and every thought was shaped for a purpose, you'll start to see why your pain was never random. This isn't the end. It's the doorway. If you're still here, if you still feel the weight of this truth in your chest, then write one sentence in the comments below. Something only the awakened will understand. I won't go back. Or simply, the truth is finally out. Let them see we're not alone. Because if even a few of us choose to see the rest, everything starts to change. If you're still here, if something inside you is still echoing from what you just heard, then this isn't just a video anymore. It's a moment. And moments like this, they change people. You didn't get this far by accident. So don't let it end here. Hit the like button, not for me, but so this message reaches someone who's still trapped in the illusion. Subscribe, because what's coming next is bigger, darker, and more dangerous than anything we've exposed so far. And if your eyes are still open, if you feel that pull in your chest, you're ready. This isn't just a channel. It's a weapon, a voice cutting through the noise. And now, you're a part of it. In the comments, write, I see the system now. Let the others know you've woken up. Let the algorithm see we're not afraid to speak. And don't stop here. Click the next video on the screen, because what you're about to discover in that one will show you how your pain was never random. It was engineered. This truth isn't easy, but it's real. And if it moved something in you, then share this with one person who deserves to wake up. You've already stepped outside the matrix. Now take the next step. I'll see you there.